Hello, welcome back to the Hibs Observer. I'm Patrick McPartlin and I'm joined, as always, by Liam Bryce. Plenty to get through this morning, including a look back at last night's Goalfest at Easter Road, upcoming trip to Hampden to face Aberdeen in the semi-finals of the Viaplay Cup, and of course, a return to league duty on Saturday with a visit of Dundee. So, I think straight into last night, Liam, a veritable game of two halves.
Yeah, aye, you could say that absolutely. The first half it was just almost it was a complete felt like a bit of a non-event really. Up until obviously St Mirren scored. Um, Hibs had the majority of the ball without really going anywhere with it, and I think a lot of that was down to St Mirren. To be fair, they are extremely well organised, especially in that first half. They were sitting in with a back five and then three in front of them and then two, and it was just they just had players kind of everywhere that Hibs wanted to play. They were going, I think, when they had the ball, they're kind of going long from goal kicks, trying to get the ball forward early, and it was first half wasn't a classic, was it? So I think we deserved the entertainment of the second half, to be honest. It was brilliant. Really good fun. Again, keep using that word. And I think Nick Montgomery said afterwards that the instruction to the players was to at halftime was to just keep calm. But I don't know. I'd be surprised if it maybe wasn't there wasn't something that was worded maybe slightly stronger than that, because I thought there was a noticeable kind of uptick in intensity after the halftime whistle, and obviously that was shown in the two goals that arrived kind of one bang right after the other. And then I thought Hibs were in control for a lot, maybe about a good 20 odd minutes after that. And then came, I think, three changes at the one time, which I thought was, I thought it looked quite bold at the time. And I felt like it sort of disrupted Hibs' control for only sort of maybe a 5 minute spell, but it was enough for St Mirren to come back into the game. But clearly, they'd left enough on the pitch, and Martin Boyle took over after that. I think he'd be disappointed not to have a hat trick, considering the one that he blasted against the keeper as well. But again, yeah, I mean, really, really good night for Hibs. Putting 4 goals past one of the informed teams in the country, it is a wee bit of a statement, I think. Kind of shows what this team's capable of. You're kind of the fact now that you can pretty confident that they are capable of scoring goals against the majority of teams in the country. And obviously the headline is off to Hampden, a big game against Aberdeen on, I think it's either 4th of November, 4th or 5th, or 3rd or 4th. It's over that weekend anyway. Yeah. So again, it'll be a great occasion for the supporters getting through to the National Stadium, and it's a good thing for Nick Montgomery to have delivered in his his first few games in charge. So it's a good night all round for Hibs.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because, as you sort of pointed out, St Mirren did play very well in the first half, and they did well to frustrate Hibs. And I don't really recall Hibs having any clean-cut chances on goal. There were maybe a couple of half chances. Christian Doidge with a header and a couple of shots that went wide, but obviously they scored just before halftime, and that kind of puts the fans' backs up a little bit. There was a little bit of booing, I think, as the players were leaving the pitch at halftime, which I don't think we've really heard under Montgomery yet, because things have been better than they were previously. But I mean, I wrote about this in our analysis and saying how quite often last season Hibs didn't seem to have a plan B. Like, if plan A wasn't working, then there wasn't an obvious sort of change in sort of tactical approach, formation. There wasn't a kind of one or two players you could throw on who could sort of change the game. But what was interesting last night, I felt, was that they didn't really seem to do anything differently in the second half when they had that spell when they scored the first 2 goals. It just seemed to be doing what they'd been doing in the first half, but better, more. It was faster, it was more slick, and I think it's good for Hibs. It's good for the squads to have a manager like Montgomery who has faith in what he's doing, that it will work, and that if you just keep on plugging away, then you'll get your just rewards.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. As you've pointed out, I don't think there was any great philosophical change from first half to second half. It was just about doing the game plan better. First half, I think the problem first half was maybe I just felt it was a wee bit kind of slow at times, and it played into St Mirren's hands. I think when they've got that many players behind the ball, the key thing is to not not rush things, but you do need to move it quickly. You do need to kind of try and drag that back five out of its shape, which is obviously no easy thing to do. And I felt like Hibs were trying to follow the manager's instructions for that first half, but I just felt it was lacking a wee bit in terms of speed. I think St Mirren were happy for the midfield to be dropping in closer to the back four, because then a lot of the time it sort of left us, you could see there was a kind of huge gap between the midfield and that front four, and I think maybe with Adam Lafondra not on the pitch in that first half, you were kind of missing somebody who was going to drop into that space. And I think you kind of had, obviously, the two wingers, and Venta and Doige were maybe wanting to stay up a bit higher, and you kind of had no kind of link there. So I think that made it a wee bit difficult. But I think that the two goals, the equaliser and the goal to go ahead, were just kind of just a kind of more intensity about the play. I was obviously won a corner, and then Will Fish makes sure he's the first to the ball from the delivery. They get the goal from that. The second goal as well, it was just from being sort of more incisive. I can't remember the St Mirren player, but it kind of stepped out for the back line. Hibs won the ball back quickly. There's obviously a gap there. It goes out to Lewis Miller. He's kind of on the front foot, positive, and he squares it to Dylan Vente, who it seems every time he has a shot, it ends up in the back of the net.
Yeah, I think it's something like five attempts on goal and 5 goals, which is exactly what you want from your centre forward.
It's incredibly efficient.
Yes, and I mean, again, he came in, hadn't really had much of a pre-season, so there was maybe a bit of an element of a playing catch-up. But I think much in the same way that Martin Boyle's starting to get back to something resembling full fitness. Obviously, he's had chances aplenty for goals and assists in the previous 2 games under Montgomery, and then last night, as we were saying, could have had a hat-trick. I think it's maybe the same with Dylan Vente, that he's getting up to speed, he's getting more familiar with the Scottish game, and yeah, I think you give him the ball in the box and you kind of think, if you're one of his teammates, you think he's going to score here, which must be really kind of useful, must be really, really good, thinking, if we get the ball to Dylan, then he'll stick it in. Which is exactly what you want from the striker who's effectively replaced Kevin Nisbet, who I think probably did the same job for him, certainly in the second half of last season. But to talk about the cup job, which was almost kind of forgotten about last night after the end of the Rangers Livingston game, that obviously I think a lot of Hibs fans would be looking at that and thinking, could get Hearts, could get Rangers, could get Aberdeen. I mean, lots of scope there, lots of backstories and sort of previous history as well. But Hibs will probably be fairly happy with the way the draw came out.
Yeah, I think they would probably take anybody at this point. And I think just to be there back at Hampden, because obviously it was a bit of a sore point not to be competing there last season when they'd made such a habit of it over the past few years previously. But yeah, I mean, I think I said in the analysis piece last night, it's about as wide open as cup competitions can get at this stage in Scotland. Obviously this Holders Celtic going out early doors, and Rangers are still the favourites, and I know they sort of made light work of Livingston last night, but they don't have their troubles to seek. It's been a kind of rocky start to the season, and I feel like teams like Hibs, Aberdeen would feel that they're right at Hearts as well. Obviously, are right in with a shout. And it's good. I think, just from a general perspective, to have that the cup competition so open at this stage, instead of it feeling like a foregone conclusion that it's going to be one or other of the old firm. But yeah, it's a good draw for Hibs. I think Aberdeen, they're kind of similarly ropey start to the domestic season, but they too now seem to be finding a wee bit of form. 2 wins in a row against Ross County, and I know they could beat against Frankfurt in the Conference League last week, but there was a much improved performance from them. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see over the next few weeks who can sustain that momentum the best going into this game, because it's a huge opportunity for Hibs really now, and I think for Nick Montgomery to deliver an occasion like this so early on in his tenure, he would have known that last night was a really big opportunity, It's almost you don't quite realise it sometimes when the chance to get to a semi-final comes along and we're still in September, but you can't really. I know, but it's big opportunity for both sides, and I think if Hibs can keep up the momentum that they've built over the next few weeks, they will really fancy themselves to get through to the final.
You talk about momentum there. Obviously, Hibs have a third consecutive home game on Saturday when Dundee come calling. Tony Docherty was in the crowd last night, just presumably having a look at what threats Hibs will sort of bring against his team at the weekend. But I think the big thing, just sticking with Hibs for the moment, the big thing has to really be keeping this momentum going. I think they've had issues doing so in the past, where you maybe have a good result in midweek, maybe against Hearts, Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, and then not follow up at the weekend. Feels a little bit different now. It feels that, with every, granted, yes, it has just been 3 games, but with every game Nick Montgomery takes charge of, there are more improvements every time you see them. And, there is just that feeling that, when things starting to click, and I think we saw that last night, especially with the front four, that, things are starting to click, that, there's this, fans will be going along more in expectation rather than hope. Does that sort of feel like a fair comment based on the last few games?
Yeah, and I think, the team, they've now set that expectation themselves. I think there'll be as much expectation now within the dressing room as there will be in the stands. And it'll be interesting. They've kind of set a standard for themselves now, Hibs, over these past few weeks, and this will be, another test at the weekend. It's been a busy week. First home game for Nick Montgomery last Saturday. Big cup game Wednesday night, a bit of a grueling one. Always really physical against St Mirren. So then to lift themselves again, and if they can make it 3 wins in a week, come this Saturday, then I think it's about as positive a start as you can really hope for the new manager. It's really it has all gone well for them so far, and it showed last night that there's a bit of resilience about the team as well.
Mm-hmm.
Going 1 down, it was a horrible time to concede a goal last night. Heading straight into half time, and it kind of left the place feeling a wee bit flat. And then so to show that response shows that they've got a bit about them in terms of resilience as well. And it'll be interesting to see if they can keep that going on Saturday as well.
Yeah, it seems like there's a bit more of a belief around the place. I think the players certainly seem to trust in each other. I'm not saying they did before, but there does seem to be that kind of belief, that sort of doggedness and thing. We've had a bit of a setback here, but we can turn this around. And obviously they did so in rather emphatic fashion last night. And again, they lose another goal. I think previous Hibs teams might have crumbled, might even have lost. Another goal might have gone out. Certainly, you look at Hibs earlier on in the season, they sort of did. They did St Mirren what St Mirren did to them last night, in that they sort of equalised late on, but then lost a goal and ended up losing the first game of the league season. Obviously, Hibs kind of did it in burst order last night. But there does seem to be this sort of newfound belief in the team that when things are against them, if they kind of club together and essentially just act as a unit, they can get out of it. And I think it goes back to what we've said since Montgomery arrived, with this sort of basic kind of principles of hard work and kind of team spirit. It's like, it is very simple, but it does seem to be working. And I think the exciting thing for Hibs fans, and I know we keep saying this in the same way that we keep saying Hibs are a fun watch now, but I think it's also the fact there's a lot more still to come from this team. There's a lot more to come from individuals. I think we've still not seen, for instance, Dylan Levitt get any game time under Montgomery yet. I know a few fans were asking that question yesterday. Is he kind of out of the picture, or what's the story going on with him? There's other players. Josh Campbell sort of featured off the bench. We've seen kind of Alan Del Ferrier and sort of fits and starts. We see he's signed a new 3-year deal with the club just this morning. So that's another bit of kind of future planning. Obviously, something something in his game that the management team like. But I think the overriding feeling for me is that Hibs are doing good things at the moment. They're winning games. They're winning them in style. They're recovering from adversity, whether it's losing a goal just before half time, whether it's losing an equaliser with 10 minutes left to play, something like that. But there is, there does feel that there's still more to come. Even people like Ellie Yuan, Christian Deutsch, unlucky last night, but you think there is, there's always that threat that they're going to do something, and I don't know about you, but it seems to me that there is a team going to come to Easter Road or they'll host Hibs somewhere that will be on the end of quite a severe drubbing.
Yeah, certainly at the moment you get that impression. I think you're seeing goals right across the team at the moment. That front four are all contributing. And I think teams will inevitably be wary of that. The strength and depth that they've got in the attacking areas and the pace as well. I think for that reason you're probably you might see a lot of, not a lot, but teams trying to do what St Mirren did in the first half. I think there'll not be too. I mean, maybe you exclude maybe Celtic and Rangers from that, obviously, but there'll be not too many teams who want to come to Easter Road and play kind of open, expansive football, just because I think you've seen it with as the game wore on last night. St Mirren are chasing an equaliser, and the gaps that were left for Hibs to exploit. And I think when you've got so much pace in the team, you're always going to get joy when the game kind of gets into that sort of situation where one team are chasing it. So I think teams will be coming to Easter Road quite wary, quite conservative, just because of the pace and the ability and the kind of the way that Hibs are trying to play. But I think you're right in saying that there probably is, there's a lot more. There should be a lot more to come. There's different guys who have not really played a part so much as yet, and you wonder where they're going to fit. And I think in terms of the midfield, you talk about Dylan Levitt. I think Nick Montgomery does seem to be, he's clearly set his stall out that he thinks that Jonio and Jago are his two for in there. So you wonder how. Where does kind of Levitt come and fit into that? I'm sure he'll get opportunities at some point, but I suppose it's nice that the manager does have options, guys who have not really featured yet, who will be desperate to make an impression. It's all kind of largely positive at the moment. It's difficult to think, I think any sort of criticism would be nitpicking at this point. I think fans should probably enjoy that because it's not often, for any team that you're sitting thinking everything's pretty good at the moment. It's definitely been a positive few weeks.
Definitely, I think you'll always find some fans who are perhaps keen to find a little bit of negativity. I think certainly the first half last night had a few fans sort of a little bit itchy on the sort of trigger fingers on social media to castigate the team for what they felt was a below par performance. But as we've discussed, they kind of turn it around, and that's something that they're maybe not used to. Certainly in recent times with Hibs. So I think Nick Montgomery will probably quite like the idea of proving a few people wrong by being able to send his team out and actually get the results. So it's we've talked about Dundee. It'll be another test for the management team, not just in terms of getting a result, but just keeping that momentum going. Keeping the players sharp, as we're saying, it's 3 games inside a week. Probably quite lucky that Wednesday night didn't go to extra time and penalties, which would have taken even more out of the playing squad. But again, not really too much in the way of knocks or injuries that we could really see. So all of this is positive, and once again we'll be there on Saturday to bring you everything from Easter Road as Nick Montgomery and Hibs look to make it another home win and just continue this unbeaten run. Liam, thanks for joining me this morning.
Pleasure.
Thank you to everyone who has subscribed and is reading our articles on hibsobserver.co.uk, and we will see you again soon. Thank you.